Recording is on.
So hi there, we are here in the very first Bitcoin Core app design jam session. Bit of a long title here, but we've had regular meetings with the whole team, design and development, and we'll continue to have those. But we wanted to create space for a session where we're just looking at the designs, pretty much just be together in Figma, talk about design process, tweak things. It could also be user testing or QA or other things eventually. Just create space purely for design stuff to happen. And I think with this first one, the topic will be also partially about how we just collaborate around this whole thing with design documentations and Figma. But before I get into that, thank you for being here. I'm excited because we've chatted on Slack and other calls so much. Here we are. Now we have this space. So what should we talk about today? What do you think?
We can continue our discussion
we're
on.
really expecting you to have the master plan. This is why we're sitting here listening.
Okay. So let me do something real quick here. Let's start from the beginning. What we're actually doing here. So I think most people know the Bitcoin Core Qt application. It was started, 12 years ago or so. And a new application is being designed and in the early stages of being built. The very first version will focus, it's going to look like this. So you set it up, and then all it does is just kind of run a node, and then you get this nice block clock here. Just kind of shows you see blocks coming in, shows you the block time, just very simple. And there are all kinds of other design things that are being set up, like typography and colors and different types of visual elements and layout. And we try to think through those in a lot of detail. So here's, all kinds of different elements have been defined, like here are the different elements of the block clock, all kinds of buttons. This is partially based, it is based on the Bitcoin UI kit as well. Things like spacing and active states and the colors, because we really want to have a really good design framework that we can build on top. And the second version of this application will be a wallet. And you can see this screen here is completely empty because all we have right now is some, we basically just met and we discussed what's in the current GUI and what features there are and how they work, what's good, what's bad. And there are some sketches also here somewhere in Figma around, some explorations. And then we put together some user stories. We kind of have a bunch of stuff that we created, but it's kind of time to be more structured about this. And the second aspect of this whole thing that I'd like to show here, which will just take me a second, is bitcoincore.app, which is our design documentation. I'm going to pull that up here in the background as well. If I can find the right window here. Is it this one? Yep, and it is. Okay, so bitcoincore.app. That's what this looks like right now. Very straightforward design documentation. Ideally, this can become the go-to place for anything related to design. So all the basics that I mentioned, colors, typography, icons, illustrations, want to figure out how the layout works, but then also some considerations around, decisions we made around accessibility or design principles, responsive design, how we go around managing complexity, about the design process. Maybe we can put user stories eventually there. And then I think we should also have these pages kind of feature specific. So the whole onboarding experience we can document, the block clock, which is kind of its dedicated experience, Explorer, console, wallet, and then later on we might have send, receive, we might have activity or settings and all kinds of other things in here. So I've been kind of pushing stuff in here as a foundation. It's really just been mostly me setting this up, but it is time that we all work on these things and that we have a comprehensive workflow. And let's see, Mo went in here and started documenting things. So this is the GitHub repo, which also hosts the website. And so here in discussions, I had this, I think you already read through this. There's a proposal that the way that we do design is that we just discuss in this call, other calls all over the place. Then we go into, we each have a workspace page here in the, I don't know if you can see it, in this main document where we each screw around and come up with awesome solutions. Then we discuss them. And then we would go to the GitHub repo. And let's see. Then we would go into maybe an issue, or we create a pull request. Maybe an issue where we say, like, okay, I have an improvement for balance display. And then I will say, like, here's what I came up with. And then we discuss it. And then we create a pull request. It adds it to the documentation. And then we're all in sync. And then the second thing we'd have to do is that we update these main screens, these main pages here. So it moves from kind of the workspace into the documentation and those main pages in Figma. And then ideally we have everything in sync. Because if we just keep it in Figma, like I said in that post, it's like anyone can make changes, nobody will ever know because there's no notifications, there's no friction, which is awesome for collaboration, but it just doesn't help keep everybody in sync. And it's tedious. It'll be more tedious. It's not fun. It's fun to be in Figma and move stuff around. GitHub's not necessarily fun, but it will help. So yeah, what do you think in general? And what do you have to add? Because I'm sure there are more steps that we have to add around user stories, or if we want to do service blueprints, or I don't know.
So so the changes to Figma file will be done only. Changes will be discussed in the issue by the group and then accepted, and then it's added to the main Figma file. Am I right?
Yeah. So so Figma is just kind of fragile. So if, let's say, I go into this workspace page and I change a button component, it could mess up stuff on your page because we have these link components and whatnot. So it's a little bit fragile. So we need to like have clear separate space where we can come up with new things, and then need to move them to some type of process where we all kind of agree on stuff. So I would, if we're all careful with components, I think it's okay if all of us have our dedicated, like there's a Christoph workspace, there's a Bosch workspace, we can add a Mo workspace, and a Jakob and a Shashwat workspace. But we just have to be careful that we don't break, these like the styles and the components, because those, like that will affect like everybody else's pages in the main files or so. If we don't want to take that risk, then we kind of need to work in separate files and then move things into the main file.
That makes a lot of sense.
We can have
a lot of sense.
We can have a rule that if you want to change a component, you need to create a PR or something, right? Like, but the components is mostly very basic items, right, of design. So I guess it won't be changed that often.
No, I don't think so. I think they're fairly advanced. But just to illustrate it, it's let's say I'm here in my workspace. If I change, let's see. I mean, you know how it works in Figma, right? If I change this color here, it's going to be updated everywhere. Oh, that's the wrong one I've selected here. Black lights. Ah, we have some inconsistencies. Yeah, but with these styles, it's just easy to break stuff, and nobody will ever know. Right? But yeah, if all we're doing is kind of recombining the existing components and barely ever touching them, then I think it's fine. If we can do that part manually. And then either, I think we can be a little bit flexible too. If we discuss in a call and all of us are here,
Yeah.
then we can make a decision, but we should still kind of then say, okay, in GitHub somewhere in an issue or PR, like here's what we decided, because Gerald's not here, Basto's not here, maybe Promag wants to come in or other people, then it should be just somewhere else too, because people, like how many people are going to watch this video? Like,
You'd be surprised. I just have a
I would
question.
be surprised because our view counts are not that high on YouTube.
I want to just understand. So I'm going to have my little workspace. So let's say I decide to work on the connection setting screen. I'll do it in complete Mo style. I'll go look at other connection setting screens. I'll do some competitive, research, and then I'll change something, make a change. Then I'll submit that change as an issue to GitHub, saying like connection setting screen suggestions based on this reasoning. And then you'll comment, Jacob will comment, Sashwat, other people can comment. And then if that's approved, then it moves into the main design file itself.
Yeah, so I think if let's say, so here I think these workspaces are good when you work very closely to what's in this file. Like there's setting screen, you just make some changes, you can keep it in here. I think a new file, a completely different file, is great if you want to go all over the place. If you want to make like wireframes and diagrams, and you have different pages with the mood boards with 50 screenshots from other applications, like that's great in a dedicated file.
Yeah.
But for things where I'm just saying, okay, I'm like this screen, we decided on the screen, I'm just going to try out some variations of it with the components we have. I think that's good to do in the workspace.
Yeah.
And that's like very close to the design.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we just need to like have some process so we're all on the same page with things, and we leave a trail and kind of a track record, because it will also allow more people outside of this group to come in and give us sanity checks.
Just around
It's like, no, this sucks. What you're doing, it's not right. You need to do it this way. I hope people come in and say that.
Just a thought I've had. How about if we do some PR on GitHub? I assume that would be some which designers would be worked on, perhaps on a separate file, and they at some point they think it's ready to propose that to add it to the main design, the main file. So then we can create a PR, and perhaps we can create a page on the main file with this PR, with the same name as the PR. And at the GitHub post, we can just link to that page. I'm just thinking how to connect, how to really reflect or mimic, the GitHub flow with the flow.
Yeah, so my recommendation would be to not link, to link to Figma, but also export it as an image. Like in this, there's a page here called Design Docs website in Figma, and that has all screens that show up in the Design Docs. So I would, and for example, this screen is an actual mobile device screen with annotations. So I would create things like this and put those images directly in the GitHub issue, and then also link to Figma where the source is, because not everyone's comfortable using Figma and navigating around in Figma. So and also the thing is, if we only link to Figma files, then it's not really archived, because that can change. That file could get deleted. If there's an actual image of the design you're proposing, then that image will stay there. It'll be there in 5 years, hopefully. Right? Mm-hmm. But it's happened before where you link to a Figma and then like somebody didn't think about it, but there was a link still to that and just decided to change stuff around, and then it just wasn't a good track record anymore.
Okay, makes sense.
I have a question from perspective of designers. So where do we want to what next steps are we going to take in the designing process? Since for the version 1 onboarding views are almost, I guess, completed, right? There are some things like on the connection page, we are not yet able to do make fast always on, slow always on options. So Christoph suggested another kind of page in which default setting is something like that was present. So now where are we gonna go next in the designing process? Like, are we gonna design the version 2's wallet or make the current views better?
Why not both? When when we have to work on multiple I don't know, dimensions, tracks, I guess, because during development things always come up that need to be addressed, and then someone will come in and say, hey, I want to implement this feature, how can we make that happen? But at the same time we need to look forward and create a good plan for the wallet features. And with the wallet features, we also have multiple horizons. We have kind of the end state where we have all these amazing features with I don't know, with Fedimint integration and I don't know, multi-sig wallets and hardware device and all this stuff. And then we have intermediate, and we have the first version, which may be just, I don't know, very simple single sig wallet send receive, and that's it. I don't know yet. I'm just making it up. Like we have to work on multiple tracks and horizons here. But I think with a lot of the wallet stuff, we're still kind of in exploration.
Yeah.
We're still where Jakob looked at the send, did a bunch of exploration around send. I did some exploration around just generally what screens we need, and maybe like a bunch of stuff around the create wallet. And then we can do it together or independently. We can do explorations on activity screen or settings or whatever it is. And then we can work systematically through it. And I think once we kind of have done some of these explorations, when to tie it all together, something we should talk about is something very fundamental. It's this top-level navigation, like this top bar, right? So in any application, you have this top bar, and you actually have in your operating system, you also have this navigation bar at the top. And that's kind of the main way that you navigate these different things. And we can talk about, well, is this what we want to do? You know, we need to detail out this balance here, and how these things work. So just from the outside in, we can start making decisions and document them step by step. I don't know. What do you think?
I have a question for the explorations. Who would you guys look to for ideas that are, because there is nothing that is the same or similar to the GUI. So where would you go? Because I made a suggestion, I think, in the Google Doc, and I mentioned Electrum. But who else would you kind of go to look to for inspiration and ideas? Which other apps or GUIs?
So I don't know about you, but I would look very broadly, like for the Padawan students, the Summer of Bitcoin, which Padawan is about a learning experience. So we told them, well, look at Duolingo, for example. It's a language learning app. It's very playful and friendly. So just look at something like that. We could look at anything. You could look at Slack. You could look at finance applications. You could look at your bank's website if you find a good example. You could look at, I don't know if there's a super awesome Dogecoin desktop app that has like the most amazing UX, right? We could look at patterns from there. It would really be all over the place. So I would not, I would just keep that flexible. But I mean, it's good within Bitcoin to also look at certain things because those are the exact patterns. But something like Electrum is also, I don't know, it's organically grown without, let's say, a design process. Or a heavy design process. So I don't know. There are things you'll be able to take, but other things that we may not want to.
I think like looking at the other cryptos wallets may be interesting. Like some of the more advanced one, we could find some of the more advanced wallets. A lot of similar. Yeah. Go ahead.
I think the Ledger Live desktop app was actually pretty good, if I remember correctly. I haven't
Ooh,
used
I'll
it
write that
before.
down. Ledger Live
Um,
desktop.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, the experience of how they guide you through the setup and whatnot was pretty good. And that's the desktop application for a hardware wallet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, it supports all of these other chains. So, the first thing you see is all of these different types of assets there, which we're not going to have. But yeah, I think just depends what you're looking for.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Okay.
I have one question on the discussion side of building. So, if, like for example, we are thinking of what the main screen of wallet page should contain. So now, if we want to suggest something like, say, an example screen, so should we go with like approach of mentioning all the things that we want on the page, or creating a wireframe and discussing it with others that how the element should be positioned there? So, what's the exact process of going through the discussion is?
How we decide on something?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, a good process is like Mo said, you gather your research, you figure out how it can be done, you figure out exactly what you actually need to deal with, which is different from the other applications. Like they're basic specs, right? The activity screen, show the balance, show a list of transactions. It's not a multi-chain crypto whatever thing, so you're not going to have to like show little icons for like whatever. There are just certain things you have and you don't have. And I think it's also helpful to mock up different variations. For example, with the where is it? Yeah, here it is. With the Block Explorer mockups, I looked at these two things here. One had a sidebar and one didn't. I actually started with the sidebar one. And, the thing with wireframes, so 10 years ago, before Figma, Sketch, and all of this stuff, it was super hard to make wireframes. There was Photoshop for UI design, and then there were wireframing tools. And Photoshop was not a UI design tool. It was super tedious to do anything. And then everybody was like, we need to do wireframes. But I feel like now where our UX design tools have gotten so smooth that it's almost like, well, why do you need to do wireframes? It's like kind of this almost the same process as doing the actual final design in a way. It's like the gap has been closed a bit. So I think it's, and especially if we have a good foundation with the elements that we need and colors, we can do fairly high fidelity mockups fairly quickly and just say, this is what the two variations that we want to resolve our navigation on the screen. And then we can just look at them and say, discuss which one's better or worse. And yesterday, we also helped the Summer of Bitcoin students refine stuff. And what they had two different design regs and they needed to combine it. And what we did there was we created a column that says undecided, a column that says decided. And we pulled out, okay, here are two different ways to style this thing. Like we broke it down into smaller decisions. And then we basically kind of picked each one up. Everybody said what they thought. And then it actually very quickly led to, quickly we moved everything to the decided column. And it was fairly smooth once we got that started. So yeah, I think mocking just a bunch of different stuff up.
Yeah.
Kind of shows you what works and what doesn't.
And I think that every individual designer also works best in their own style as well. I think like Christoph is more like with the actual, because there's so many designs that have already been created. So it almost seems like turning back the clock. Why would you, I don't know, what's the right word I'm looking for? Reinvent the wheel if the wheels already exist. But like, I think for me, I would most likely grab a screen state and then I'm going to go to Ledger Live and then I'll be like, oh, that's a good idea. And then it depends on how quickly you want to like show your idea. Like maybe someone will be like, oh, like I'll just go change the idea in the actual design file itself and just make a change to it. Or you might be like, I just want to go sketch something on a piece of paper, in my case on the iPad, and then I'll be like, hey, Christoph, have a look at my sketch. And then he'll turn the sketch into maybe the design, you know? I think it's also interesting, like how we will collaborate together, because I'm more on I like the research side of things more. I like to research things and then make suggestions based on that. So, yeah, that will likely be my method of working. And yeah, I guess everyone's different.
No, that's a really good point. Yeah, use whatever you want. If you want to sketch things on a piece of paper, totally cool. Just do what you want. And I'm also happy I found it helpful to take on the role of just kind of picking up other people's ideas and visualizing them and presenting them back without much comment, and then letting the group decide. But helping visualize things in a way that ideally what other person meant, which is sometimes difficult, sometimes easy.
Yeah.
But facilitating it that way.
Yeah.
I guess going through with a bottom-up approach would save a lot of efforts and would be a good process, because after we are finalized on a design, we all know that we all discuss all the aspect of it. So like going through the research phase, then a low fidelity wireframing, then high fidelity design, then final touch-ups. So I guess this would be a good approach and would save a lot of effort from everybody's side.
Yes, sounds logical. But how would you break it down by feature, let's say? Like, let's say we want to decide on global navigation, or we want to decide on, I don't know, the send page or so. Like, would you also do like per feature kind of a research wireframing process, or?
I guess per page kind of research would be good, because on the research phase it is gonna be messy from everybody's side. Somebody is gonna think in terms of page wise, some feature wise, and something else. So the messy parts could be done. The discussions could be done in the research phase, where I guess not even any kind of design has been created, so that we are sure on which features we are going to keep on the final design, and that this will save the effort of thinking of placing the design on the right place, and then realizing that we don't even want this feature on this page. So I guess going bottom up would save a lot of effort.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be messy. It's gonna be messy.
I do have a comment on the research side of things. Like, it feels very much like this is going to be a constant iteration process. So it's not going to be possible to actually do like one big load of research, because you'll probably spend like a year doing research only, and then only you can move to the design phase. So it's going to have to be very iterative. So it's going to have to be very like back and forth to like do little chunks of research, and then like little chunk, and then it's brought into the design, and then like a little chunk, and then, because then you guys have screens to work with as well, you know.
Especially that we already have. I mean, we're not like building it from scratch. We have
exactly
features from the original Bitcoin Core.
Exactly.
At least most of it.
Exactly.
So the research will be mostly about how to improve the experience of that. That features how to move parts of the wallet to improve them, right? For example, one thing that comes to my mind and that came up on the previous calls, like the usage of labels and messages, right? Just like, because I used Electrum, but I never used Bitcoin Core to like send, and Electrum we also have labels and messages as far as I remember, but I'm wondering how people really use it, and perhaps that's a good like a first research question we could try to find out, because Well, I guess the label is kind of like a contact name, but we cannot name it contact because it's just a name for the address, not a contact really, right? So, but yeah, I'm wondering if there is something to discover here, right? And also how much should we expose label? For example, when I was designing the send feature, I wasn't sure how much should we, show label as a hidden thing, like more optional, or should we really encourage users to use it, right? Also, there are some. I'm not exactly sure of the like relation, but I read that like using labels is a good privacy, actually a good privacy practice. I'm not sure why, but there are these minor things that perhaps from the UX perspective we should encourage to use some features which are optional but are beneficial for the user, right? So there's this a lot of nuances with existing features that we can that I guess as Mo said, we could spend 1 year.
We could literally spend
really
1 year doing research only. I'm not even joking.
Yeah, so Hashmat, I think this is what you're referring to, right? Design process.
Yes, kind of, kind of, yes.
So I worked for a startup years ago, and initially it was just for the first 2 years I was the only designer, and the way I thought about it was that you start everything at 0, so your overall design style starts at 0, and then you make something, and it's like, okay, you're 20% happy, but it has to go out. You just have to make it happen. Things have to go out, and then you're like, okay, we're gonna have some basic. This is like the onboarding thing, and then this is like some of your core flow. You put a little bit more effort in, and then here's like your email stuff, and here's your account handling, and then you're like here, okay, and then you're like, okay, but our onboarding really sucks. Okay, we're gonna boof that up. We're gonna put in 2 weeks, and we'll get it to like 60%. But okay, now we really have to work on this because our visual style is not good enough. Okay, but we don't have time. We're just gonna get it to here, and then it's like, you have all these things, and you kind of over time you want them to all go to the top, and it's just not very useful if you have like if you're here, right? That's not very helpful. You want to like beef up little by little, and so I think it'll be good if there are some areas where we say, okay, this is really important to get it right and to put a lot of effort in at the beginning, and some other ones where we say, okay, this is maybe not so important. Like maybe for coin selection, our first version, we know it's just going to suck, but, because it's like a small feature and it's fine, and we'll get around to it later. But maybe the send and receive and wallet creation, maybe those are the first ones or so. So I think we have to also be okay sometimes when things just kind of suck and we don't do all our research right away. We're just gonna, okay, we'll have something. We'll get back to it.
With regards to the research as well, like research is also after the process. So after the screen is designed and it's developed, then you can A/B test as well. So you can also like, just literally just jump on a call with someone. Hey, this is a prototype of the send flow. I don't know, 6 screen states, and you can then do research, because then you can just jump on a call with someone and you can walk them through those 6 prototype screen states before it's actually even moved to development, get some feedback from them, change that in the design, and then it can move to development, So research is also not something that's only done in the beginning, but it can be very in between the process, like it's mushy, it's very in between. Yeah,
I agree. Every like basically in every every part of the life cycle of the product, there's some type of research which is useful, and
yeah.
depending on
So it's like what we could even already do is take the onboarding screens and have someone click through that and be like, hey, well, what's your experience with this? Okay, I don't understand this. Okay, I don't understand that. Make some notes, maybe make some changes to the main design based on that, and then it moves into the development as well. So that's a very beautiful thing about research. It can be everywhere and in between.
I mean, just to add on to that, it might be helpful if we come up with, I don't know if we need more than that, but if we take these two perspectives, one is simply screens and the other one is setting up for the first time, making a transaction to a friend or so. If we have these user flows, like we can organize our design work by, okay, we're just looking at nav structure. Is it logically make sense, right? Is it as a self-contained thing? Is our transaction screen good?
Yeah.
And then we can have our list of user flows, and then we can match it against that. Like, what are all the screens that touch this transaction screen, and how do users move through that? Does it satisfy all those user needs?
Yeah, 100%.
Within their sequences. And maybe those are two good perspectives to, and maybe we should just take one of these at a time and kind of work through it.
Yeah, agreed.
But yeah, it helps if you have something to start with, even if it's, it's wrong, right? It's hard to have a discussion about an onboarding flow if you have like nothing, no empty screens. If you have some screens there, then you can talk about them and figure out what's right or wrong. So it's good to throw something out as well. So I don't know. How does that how does that sound?
Sounds perfect. If you're gonna just do complete research and then go to the design phase, we would be stuck in the perfectionism loop, where we would just want to make the perfect design, and we are just not creating anything. Just like the example Christoph mentioned, where the first page is designed perfectly, but other pages have not even started designing. So, yes.
And it's so easy. Like I say this lightly, but it's so easy to just grab a couple of Christoph's, screens or the screens that Jakob designs for the receive flow. Just jump on a call with someone, let them click through a prototype of that, get some feedback from them, and then suggest some changes based on what that person says, So it's really like, it takes like half an hour to create a prototype, at least of a few screens. So, it can be done very quickly and very fast.
Yeah, it's like cost effective, right?
Very quickly.
It's a word in my mind, but it's not the right.
It's also very agile as well. I was talking to Bosch about it today, and Bosch was mentioning, I've never really done UX research in all the companies I've worked at. He was like, well, what we used to do is we used to A/B test. Oh, okay. Well, that sounds interesting. That's still research, A/B testing is still research. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think a good thing too is if we're very public about our process, we invite feedback. Because I think the bigger your organization is, the more you are removed from your users, the more you need to do research and testing. Because you're not the person who enjoys your product. You don't even see how people use it. You don't know what their needs are because you don't live that life or whatnot. But I think in open source, you kind of have this co-creation happening.
Yeah.
That facilitates it a little bit more.
I'm just curious where we can actually find people to test some clickable prototypes. I'd be really curious because
local Bitcoin meetup.
Yeah, actually, the guy we interviewed for the what was it? We had a quick call with him. Wallet recovery guy. He was very keen on I'm sure there's a lot of people like that. We just need to find them.
So we should also we should just start this thing where we create prototypes and we have an issue or something, discussion, GitHub or wherever else. And we just regularly say in Slack, hey, here's prototype we'd like to get feedback on, and just kind of see what happens. Maybe nothing happens, but then we'll know.
I guess what the designing process or the QML GUI's development process lacks is the proper marketing of it. Because what I'm even seeing on the Slack group is even after making it public, there are very, very few people other than us who are first of all involved. They might have joined, but they are not involved. At least not even texting or even coming to this talks. So I guess we want to first make this more public. Maybe we could take it to a social media like Reddit or something, which is which accepts this kind of feedbacks from us. At least we can say
Yeah.
them this kind of development is going, so you can
Yeah.
join, you can come on board. Maybe people want to come on board, but they are not even aware that this something like this is going.
How about Twitter? I mean, Bitcoinism has some presence, and
So I think we should first start with a little bit more the narrow circles.
Yeah, I
remember
was thinking
Bosch
of also
asked
just
sorry, just one anecdote. Bosch asked on Reddit about in the Bitcoin about what people like Bitcoin Core if they use it, and they're like, "What are you talking about? What is this shitcoin?" They thought it was like some hard fork of Bitcoin with its own thing. They really didn't even know what Bitcoin Core was. So yeah.
which we've now kind of done some onboarding, and which part is the next like logical part to start focusing on of the flow? What do you guys think? Or
So on you're talking about version 1 or version 2?
ooh, I never knew there was a version 2.
So version 1 is the node runner, which is all this stuff here, and that's basically in implementation where we're just responding to the implementation progress. So that's just going to be design's basically done.
Okay.
And so it will just run. It's just onboarding, and then you will run a node, and that's it.
Okay.
And then version 2 will be the wallet, where we then have
This is the one. This is the one.
all of,
Yeah.
like roughly these are the screens that we're going to deal with.
This is the one I'm referring to. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the one that we've done the onboarding for already, if I'm correct. So just as in the actual development of the onboarding, but there are no other live screens that exist for this.
So the onboarding will probably have to change because now you have a wallet.
Yeah.
So we may want to ask people, well, do you want to create a new one? Do you want to import one? What do you want to do? And then like the wallet creation flow can potentially be really complex. So what features? This is not complete, but it's. Did you watch the video where I messed around with this stuff?
No, I haven't watched that yet. No.
Yeah. So I'll just say it real quick. So we ask you, like, choose a wallet type: regular, single sig, fully contained in this application; external wallet with a hardware device; multi-sig; view only; or custom. You're the expert and you just like configure everything, and then whatever you do first, it can explain to you like, here's what you need to know. Like, if you're doing a regular wallet, it has to, like Hebasto said, you need to know that this only lives on your device. Like if you're responsible. If you have a view only wallet, that's different, right? You're just entering an XPub and you might not even need to enter a password or anything. And then you don't need to back it up either. If you have a multi-sig setup, then we need to tell you, well, here's how multi-sig works. Mm-hmm. You ask like, how many keys should you have? How many should be required for signing? And then you have to go through the setup of each individual key. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Whether it's on this device or whether you import them or connect a hardware wallet or whatnot. And so there could be like 50 screens here in the middle. And then with the custom one, like with a hardware wallet, I don't even know what goes in here. And with the custom one, I also have no idea. It's like some unique thing that you're constructing there. So this could potentially, if we really want to take people through all these options and guide them, help them through backup, and then send them off in the right way where we're like, okay, you have a view only wallet. It can say, okay, your wallet is ready. It's gonna, you're gonna get notifications when you have transactions, but your send screen is disabled or something, or it's not even there. I don't know. And then, so that there's a lot of stuff to figure out in this onboarding flow, and this doesn't consider like how it ties in with the node configuration. So I think that could be a really big thing in itself. I don't know if that's the first thing that developers will want to implement. It could be that the first version has nothing of this, and it just has very basic home, send, receive screen settings, and that's it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was thinking about if I have to develop all these pages, what would how much effort would I need to make? But I was like, no, not in the first version at least, not all of these. So yes, I was thinking that if I was not I hadn't thought about this, but if a type of wallet changes from say a single use wallet to a multi-sig wallet, then even the send and receive screen has to change according to them, because now the way of sending has been changed. We have to sign and send the transaction PSBT to somebody else. So like after when the version V2 is completed, we are thinking of taking it as a beta version to the general public. So at least there has to be a minimum functionality of a proper complete use of it as a complete uh, complete Bitcoin Core GUI app. So at least it first should be a node runner, and second it has some kind of wallet functionality where it can create a wallet, send or receive.
Mm.
So if we are gonna, I don't think, yes, as you Christoph, as you mentioned, that I don't think it would be too wise to go with complete onboarding and then going to the send receive kind of stage. We can, for the beta version, we can go with a single wallet only and creating the
Yeah.
send receive page.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe you just have view only, and then maybe you just have two or so, right? And then you're not gonna
But
have
then
this
view only
here.
would not work as a complete wallet app, right? Because you can't send or receive from that. So at least for the beta version, I think it would be good to have view only as well as a single person single key
Totally.
wallet. Yes, single key wallet.
Totally.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just saying maybe this is what the first version looks like, right? Maybe that's it. Just two different types, view only and regular, and that's it. And then over time we have, like, we do a sprint or we do an exploration where we say, okay, now we're really thinking through the multi-sig stuff, or now we're really thinking through hardware devices or so, and that will touch many other aspects. Yeah.
Yes.
So
and keeping only these two type of wallet, the send and receive would also be very simple. The screen would be very simple, because in the watch only wallet, the send and receive would be just lightened, and you can just click on them. We can do something like with the visual indications, and only the transaction history page could be accessible. So it would be easy, comparatively easy, but
yeah. Yeah.
So this is an interesting session, because it would this basically be you would do the onboarding and then you moving on to create wallets? Is that kind of the flow, or is there something in between?
I mean, we have to decide if that's the same thing.
Yeah.
So onboarding, you have to get the node running. That's kind of a default.
Yeah.
And then you want a wallet to be set up, and whether you create a new one or you import one, those are your two options. And let's say we import wallets, and do we allow for importing multi-sig wallets? There's also, so I don't know. I think wallet creation is kind of part of the first use in some way, but we just have to figure out how it all ties together.
So you can't create wallet until the node is fully synced, right now.
No, I think you can. No, I mean, it doesn't depend on the block data.
Okay, I know what I'll be doing in my workspace. I will be looking at what the designs Christoph came up with, and then I'll be thinking of like, okay, so first it's onboarding, so I'll make a user flow. I'll do the user flow for the onboarding, and then I'll do a flow. When I talk about flow, I'm talking about little box diagrams, not actually screen states, not actual designs themselves, but actually the flow. But I have a feeling that Christoph already did some actual user flows. I just feel that I might have seen that somewhere, or maybe that was with version 1. You did do something, or didn't you? I'm not sure.
I haven't seen.
In some FigJam file somewhere, maybe?
I remember you did do a user flow. Maybe that was for something else. But that's what I'll be doing in my design space. So
yeah, just a heads up, like all these, here it's like the text is blah, 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 your wallet is ready, right? These are really just like very quickly, thrown together screens. It's just for me, this was an exercise, and there are a lot of empty screens here, some useful info, blah, blah, but the title is here. It's like about Qt. We need a page about Qt because there's a licensing thing, right? We need it. It's just like, for me, this was an exercise in just kind of seeing, like feeling out this space, what we need. And there are different exercises. Like you said, we could create a flow diagram here. We could create a flow diagram for the basic send or just different things. And then we could have the flow diagram and matching screen designs in a prototype eventually with some
100%.
text that describes the requirements and whatnot. And I think we're going to have a bunch of variations or iterations of like what we just talked about. Send screen, single sig versus multi-sig versus completely disabled or view only.
Yeah.
And we might just say, okay, this is the first version we're developing. It's going to be very basic. And then eventually we'd like to get here. And then we have to figure out how we get that in the design docs documentations also.
Like, I like this idea of starting with a very basic version, because then you can layer the complexity. Because, if we would look at the original screen states and just say, yeah, we'll eliminate like 2 buttons from here and maybe 2 options from here, then we don't really take away from the complexity very quickly. Like this, we start with something very basic and we can just keep on adding to it as is needed.
But there's also a risk here. I mean, we should, I think, a little bit think about the more complex scenarios, because then if we don't think at all about them, we create basic ones, then we develop the more complex, and at the end we can realize that we need to really change, like the complex screens demand so much changes to the structure of the UI that it doesn't fit, a lot of elements doesn't fit from the basic one. So then we need to change the basic one. So like it's hard to, I mean, I guess there has to be some balance in like to have at least some, like at least we should know what in the complex to remember. We have to have that for mind. So not to overthrow everything upside down when we eventually go to the complex versions.
Yeah, ideally we have the down the road version already kind of mapped out, that what we implement first can grow into this other version, like you were just saying, where we don't have to just ditch it and rip the whole thing out and build something else, because it just can't evolve in the way we want to.
You mentioned Christoph had created a user flow, and I found a link of it. So one second, let me share it.
I'm gonna have to just leave in 4 minutes because I agreed to jump on with the Bolt Fun guys. And
oh yeah, Shashma, didn't you also?
Yes, I had to go for my dinner, but then I thought that this discussion is quite interesting. So I was thinking of watching the rest of this discussion on YouTube and have for you a 1 view guaranteed. But then I thought that it's better to be with the discussion and provide my input also.
I think it's this one that I saw. I think that's this one. Yeah.
Extreme happiness.
Yeah,
okay.
This is the happy part.
That's where you want to end up. Yeah.
By the way, Christoph, you in your current design, you mentioned that blah blah blah, your wallet is created. So we can keep kind of an Easter egg at least in the beta version, so that when you press some button in a particular way or click on a particular position, it will show like blah blah blah, your wallet is created. So
yeah, that's a separate language you can select. Everything will just get replaced with blah blah blah.
Guys, I think I'm gonna go so that I just have like a 2-minute break in between the 2 calls. Just actually stand up.
And I should also go before my parents have to wait for me anymore. So okay, guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I will stop the recording now also. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being here. Seems like we have to have a bunch more of these calls, and we have lots to talk about.
A lot of phone calls. Cheers, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.